Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Knitted Art History, where I'm sitting telling you some art history stories while knitting. And well, welcome to another video, or welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be talking about an artist, as I promised, and as you can see by the name of the video who we're going to be talking. However, well, today I'm just going to be sitting and talking with you. I'm not going to knit anything. I don't want to. But yeah, so before we will start, I don't really have anything to add. I'm not sure that I will be able to recommend you some kind of books, well, we'll see. Maybe I will find something interesting, because I'm mostly using Ukrainian sources or Soviet sources, thus in Russian. So, so I'm not recommending them because obviously you cannot read them. But yeah, but if I will find something interesting in English or in French, maybe, because our today's characters, we can say, she lived her whole life in France, basically. So yes, but overall I don't have anything to add here, so let's dive into our video. As you can see by the name of the video, today we're going to be talking about Sonia Delaunay. So very interesting modern artist. I am just overall, you see, I'm not a fan of the art of 20th century. I just have, few personalities that I really like, and well, Sonia Delaunay is one of them. Because every time I'm looking at her works, I'm getting so inspired by her and both these colors and shapes and everything. She's really truly an amazing, and she knows what she's doing, and you can clearly see that. So yeah, so this is why I decided that we need to talk about her today. So Sonia Delaunay. So she was born, her birth name was actually Sara Elievna Stern. So as I was mentioning about every video that I made about Ukrainian artists, is that this Elievna, it's come from the name of her father, Elia. So this is what we have here in Ukraine. She was born on November 14 of 1885 in the city Odessa. And well, overall about her childhood, there's so many mysteries and all of this stuff. So we barely know anything about this period of time when she was born until 5-7 years. So for the very long period of time, it was actually believed, and I mean, it's still a lot of actually articles that are still writing this information, which is completely untrue already. So it was believed that she was actually born in a city, Gradzinsk, which is a city in Poltava region, and Poltava region is central Ukraine, so it is quite far from Odessa. And it is believed that she was born there because her father, he worked in this city Gradzinsk on a nail factory, something like that. But it was believed that she was born there. However, we have so he's a collectioner and researcher also. His name is Yevhen Demanyuk, and he decided to make everything clear, and he started his own little investigations, we can say, and he actually found a copy of a page from the record book of Odessa Rabbinate, which was dated November 1st, 1885. Well, it's we have this, we had the changes in calendars, so this is why it has such a span of time. So he found this record, and he found in the column birth, he found the name Sara Stern, which, well, meant that she was indeed born in Odessa. Also, interestingly, so this Yevhen Demanyuk, he also proposed some idea, or I don't know how to call it, right, that maybe this Gradzinsk, because even with, it's an assumption that it was the city Gradzinsk, because there was some kind of very similar name. No one could understand what the city is that, and some researchers before Yevhen Demanyuk, they found that there is this type of city somewhere in Poltava region, so maybe it is that city, but well, but it's not even 100% sure. And this Yevhen Demanyuk also proposed some idea that maybe actually this Gradzinsk might be some kind of distorted Russian word Горадишка. So Горадишка, you see, it's a word that means little, small, insignificant city. This is we can say a derogatory name. So this is not a this is not a name with positive connotation to that. So maybe it is like this. However, you know, I'm not sure about this personally, but well, everything can be. But one way or another, Sarah Stern was born and lived in Odessa till she was 5. Other sources say 7 years old. But you know, it's not a big difference, to be honest. And in general, as I said, it's like very little known of this period of time in her life. And it's very mysterious. There's like a lot of different versions of her upbringing and how she lived and everything like this. So we know just for a fact that she lived in Odessa till like 5 or 7 years old. And something happened. So a lot of sources say that her parents both died, and she was taken to Saint Petersburg by her uncle. He was her mother's brother, a very rich man. He was an advocate, and so he took her to St. Petersburg, and since then, since like 5 again or 7 years old, she lived in St. Petersburg. And in a little bit of time, they changed her name to Sonia Terk. However, as I said, the situation is very unclear because I saw at least 3 versions of events, what was going on. So the first one is that I said that both of her parents died, and that's why she was taken to St. Petersburg. The second version is that just her father died, and because Sonia was one of the, well, at least 2 more children, 2 brothers, her mom, she asked her brother to take Sonia to St. Petersburg to take care of her, and well, the situation also was that Sonia asked, well, Sonia's okay, relationship, it will be hard right now. So brother of Sonia's mother, Sonia's uncle, he at some point asked his sister to the permission to adopt Sonia officially, but her mom said no. So this is like another thing. Why? Don't know. And well, there was like this second version, and the third one is just overall is it happened that just uncle came and he just took Sonia. Both of her parents were fine, and well, you know, things is like whimsical like that, you know. So I don't, well, biggest resources as I saw is the information is that both of her parents died, so she became an orphan basically, and that's why she was taken to St. Petersburg. However, again, I'm not sure about, you know, brothers also, something like that, because in some French resources, I used some French resources, and it was said in French resources that she indeed had brothers, but again, everything is very unclear here. However, we will move on from this, and we will like jump to the period when she was writing St. Petersburg, and I will mention just about her uncle. So her uncle's name was Henry Turk, and he was a very successful lawyer and a very rich lawyer, because he was married, like a part of his own wealth, he was also getting back, being beautiful. So he was married to a woman, and his wife, she was also, well, she came from some very wealthy magnate family, something like that, and they had a lot of like factories also. Like Henry Turk, apart of being a advocate, he was also head of like sugar factory, something like that. And I mean, back in time, here in like in Russian Empire, in Ukraine, there in Russia, like sugar factories, it was like it was very rich places, and so they had a lot of money, and thus obviously, and Henry Turk, he liked his niece, he liked Sonia very much, and he was supporting her financially, he was supporting everything, and they were traveling a lot. They had like some little house, well, not little, I think it was like kind of a good house in Finland actually, so they spent every summer there, and every summer also, they, a part of being there, they were traveling throughout Europe. So Sonia, starting from a very young age, she was already disposed, you know, to all of the beauty of European art and of European art centers, best museums, best collection, different galleries, modern galleries and everything. So she was starting from very young age, she started to be in this in this field. And well, as usually in all the stories, her talent started to show itself when she was very young, when she was in school actually, and her teacher of drawing and painting, he was the first one who actually noticed the talent of a girl, and he started to push, this agenda that you need to continue to study, you need to continue to work in this field, because like you will be very successful. And he, well, as I understand, he maybe even talked with Henry Turk. I don't know this for sure, but I mean, as her parent figure now, I believe that might have been happen. And Henry was actually he was not against it. He was like, well, why not? Why not? We have money, she has talent, why not? And thus, she finished school when she was 18, and so Henry helped her to move to Germany and to enter the Academy of Karlsruhe Art Academy. So she studied there for a year, and in 1905 she decided to move on and move to Paris, actually, because in this period of time, at the beginning of 20th century, this was like the art center of the whole Europe. This one, and also actually Munich in Germany, but well, they had a little bit different visions. So like Paris were a little bit more liberal, maybe more free. I don't know what to call it, right? So she moved to Paris. Some sources say like there is the version that why she moved like to Paris, because she read some book about Manet, not Monet, Manet. And thus she was very inspired or something, I don't know, and she moved to Paris. So initially here she studied in the La Palette Academy, but she was not very fond of that, because it was a little bit more strict, this into this academical influences, with this like academical influence and stuff like that. It was not what she was interested in, because she was a I believe, considering like what I found out about her, she was an experimentator starting from a very young age, and she wanted to create something new and something unseen before, rather than following all these rules. So she started to spend more time in some private studios of like modern painters, various also galleries. She began to associate with with this radical Parisian youth, and etc, etc. And during this period of time, we can see a lot of influence in her works from such painters as Van Gogh, Gauguin, Rousseau, some influence from Fauviste also. So obviously completely different direction from academical studying. And so she lived here, and at 23 she got married to a gallerist and a collector, Wilhelm Ude, a German guy. So they got married in London, and well, it was said that they had a very this magnificent wedding in London. However, it is believed that it was a marriage, like we can say, like kind of like arranged marriage, because from Sonia's perspective, so she's 23, her like parents, so her uncle and aunt, who stayed in St. Petersburg all this time, they were constantly, calling, not calling, like writing to her that she need to come back to St. Petersburg because she's already like old and she need to arrange her own life, she need to get married and all of this stuff. And Sonia obviously was not happy about that, because I mean it completely was well, she was a free spirit, she was a free experimental soul, and it was not for her. So that was, it is believed that it was one of the main point why she got married to Wilhelm Mudet, to just stay in Europe and to show that, well, I am married, why the hell I need to get back to Russian Empire, right? Because this period of time also we had a lot like in Russia, like in St. Petersburg, where there was like these academies and stuff, they had also a lot of this academical stuff. Because in Ukraine, for example, we in these periods we had a lot of also artists who, well, they some of them didn't know about impressionists in Europe, but they were also finding their own way in this style. But we had a lot of also artists who were traveling, because in this period of time, so at the beginning of 20th century, it was still possible to go abroad and to study abroad. So So they were in Paris, in Munich, and they saw all of these changes. They saw what was going on in Europe, all of these trends and stuff, and they were getting back and they were bringing these traditions, well, not like new traditions, we can say, into Ukraine, right? But in Russian Empire, in Russian circle, in Russian academies, it was still an academy. There were barely anyone who were like experimenting so much. So it was also like this more conservative academical circle there, while in Ukraine. But as far as I understood from what I've read, that after she left Ukraine, she never actually physically visited Ukraine anymore. But I might be mistaken, because again, I haven't found this information anywhere, and I don't know. But she has a very vivid memories about Ukraine. So I mean, I will end our video with a quote from her about that. Yeah, so there was one thing. She wanted to stay new world, completely free world, and everything. And the second thing, also as information, that maybe she married because like this green card and all this shit. So she might have married to get some papers done, so she would be able to stay there and get her passport or something, I don't know. For Wilhelm, also in the perspective of Wilhelm, so there were some rumors that Wilhelm was actually homosexual, and well, again, beginning of 20th century, not acceptable at all, well, at least in public. So it is believed that he might have married her, to kind of like to dispel of this gossip about his homosexuality. However, this marriage obviously did not work, and I think this is also one of the reasons why a lot of people and researchers believe that it was an arranged marriage, because they lived together for just 1 year, and in 1 year she met Robert Delaunay. They actually met in Wilhelm's gallery. Some sources also say that it was Wilhelm directly who presented them to each other. And well, they started to have an affair with Robert, and well, not Wilhelm, I mean Sonia started to have an affair with Robert, and Sonia moved out from Wilhelm, and this affair started where she was still married, because they officially got divorced with Wilhelm when in 1910. And they divorced somewhere in the summer. I believe it was like the end of summer, August, something like that. And they got married the same year with Robert, and it was like also, I think it was like late autumn or something like that. And in this period of time, Sonia actually was already pregnant. And in 1 year, in 1911, she gave birth to their son Charles. Apparently, Charles grew up and became a very popular figure in jazz history. I don't know a lot of things about jazz, but apparently he is a very important figure in jazz community, in jazz history community. However, interestingly, also with her husband, like ex-husband now, Sonia and Robert, they kept in a very good relationship with Wilhelm. This is, I think, maybe another reason why people think that it was arranged marriage between Wilhelm and Sonia. Because we have this culture that you cannot stay in a good relationship with your ex, but well, they stayed in a very good relationship, in a very good also business relationship. So Wilhelm, he was supporting both of Delaunay, because he saw and he understood how talented both of them are actually, and he was constantly buying their works. He was constantly making some of the like some kind of exhibitions with their works and stuff like this. He was presenting their works in his gallery and stuff. So they were completely fine when they got divorced. And well, according to Sonia's memoirs, when after the birth of a child in 1911 of Charles, she was bored at home for a pretty long period of time, and she decided to create a patchwork quilt for Charles. It was the moment that she realized that practicing with sewing and textile can also become quite fascinating, and avant-garde forms can be integrated into fabric also. So the artist began to sew herself some fancy patchwork dresses. She was constantly going to some balls, also in parties, in these dresses that she created herself, and and creating this stuff, creating this fabric collages and all this stuff. She actually in many ways she was ahead of similar searches by Picasso and by Georges Braque. Robert, he really was the right person for Sonia, because they were, they lived together all their life till the point that Robert died. And of course, quite a bit of researchers, they are starting to speculate about this thing about who made who was more important, and that, that Robert, he was the one who actually created Sonia and all this stuff. And well, technically it's not really true, because when they met her, Sonia already had a little name, well, a little but bigger than Robert, and she already created such works as Philomena, as Sleeping Girl, as Nude in Yellow, which were pretty popular, as we can say, among certain circles. So, there were no Robert yet, while there were already Sonia with this boldness of the brush, with this confident mastery in color, and with ideas which she wanted to do. And this period of time, she had some inspiration in Matisse, in Gauguin, in early works of Picasso. So, so she was like searching herself, searching successfully. But nevertheless, you see, it's like, it is not, the main point of her life and both of their lives, I think, to be so focused on who made who. Sonia herself, she once said that he gave me form and I gave him color, which I think we need to take that, this is just, both of them, they were a good influence on each other. And well, obviously maybe Sonia pushed themselves a bit further because she was more known. However, at the end of the day, they were a duo that worked together, and she was mainly working on practice, as we can say. He wrote a lot of actually theoretical stuff, so Sonia then published them, but we'll be talking about that. And yeah, so there's, as I said, they were really maybe right people to each other, because they had everything together. When one like one was lacking something in their like art or thoughts, the other was complementing this lack in something, and it was like vice versa to each other. So yeah, so we will move on from this topic, because she started this experiment and stuff. So in 1911 she moved more towards this geometry and abstraction in her works, and she began to experiment with like even more actively with rhythm and with colors also. Like that, they spent another few years, and in 1913 so they were friends with a French poet, Apollinaire, and was, as I understood, very good friends actually. So they were working basically in this cubism style, but Apollinaire called their version as Orphism, which obviously it came from the name of Orpheus. So this is might be a bit confusing here, because Orphism, and there was also such that they're working also in this Simultanism also. So it is basically, as we can say, it's like the same thing, the same stuff. And well, in 1913 it is the first year that both of Delaunay, they presented their first works in this new sub-cubist style, as we can say, if I'm not mistaken, because I'm so confused about all of this 20th century isms and everything. So this first works Sonia presented on the Salon of the Independence in 1913 again. So as for simultanism, basically the etymology of this term comes from the Latin word simul, which means together, at the same time. And in art dictionaries we can see that our dictionary tells us that this is a combination of different temporal and different spatial moments in one image. And Sonia and Robert themselves stated that simultanism is a representation of the movement of color in light. So simultanism also, one can say, it is also kind of like like kind of a different interpretation of cubism, basically. First major work in this style was the painting of Sonia's painting, was the painting Bal Boulier. So it's also like 1912, 1913. The same year, Sonia worked with a writer. I'm sorry. Was a writer, Sandra. So he was. They were both presented to each other by Apollinaire, and they created. So Sonia created this like 2 meter book that was like accordion. You know, it was like bent. You know, different ways. I mean, obviously, I will show you what I'm talking about, so you will understand what is that. And so this is. That was the book, that was the poem of Sandra, prose about the Trans-Siberian Express and Little Jean of France, like in French, La prose du Trans-Sibérien et de la Petite Jean de France. This work obviously caused a lot of sensation. Well, in Paris, because it was presented in Paris first, and it is on its own, I think, surprising, because Paris is, I think, it's the city that saw almost everything. So it was. So still Sonia was able to impress these people. Then this book was presented in Berlin, and in an exhibition in Berlin, and there actually Paul Klee, he saw this book, and it is believed that when he saw this work of Sonia, he actually got inspired by her and by her forms, by her shapes, by her like the geometrical figures, and he actually took some of them into his own art. We will talk about Ukraine. It is believed that she, even though she never visited Ukraine, as I said, well, allegedly, again, I'm not sure about this for 100%, but allegedly she never visited Ukraine after she left. But still, interestingly, you know, both Western researchers and our Ukrainian researchers, they're both agreeing on this thing that she had some influence of folk Ukrainian art, such things as our embroidery, such thing as also we have a very big, how to call it, right? I don't know. The creation of Easter eggs, that is actually also a very massive and old tradition in Ukraine. So I think it would be actually interesting to make a video about that, but I mean, I would have to find some books about that, because it's a very vast theme, very well researched, and there's a lot of researchers who are who love this theme, and so there's a lot of stuff. And yeah, so it is believed that she might have actually took some inspiration from, again, embroidery and from Easter eggs art. And as I said, both Western and Ukrainian researchers, they both agree on that she indeed had some kind of influences on that. Together with her husband, they constantly was in this creative mode. They were constantly painting things with Robert. They were working. Robert, he was also even like writing some theoretical stuffs about simultanism, orphism, and their ideas, how are they seeing all of this. While Sonia, mostly she was a practical woman, as we can say, and she was doing everything on practice. And yeah, so they were like in a constant, they were constantly showing their works in exhibitions in different cities, like in Paris, in Berlin, in Warsaw, in, I don't know, in Prague. Even some of the works were presented in different cities in USA. So they were like kind of successful pair of artists, and I mean, they are, at first glance, I think, you know, we can say that, well, they were like just another this strange abstract pair or something like that. But I personally, when you start to look into them, well, I mean, Sonia specifically, because we talk about her, you know, and I don't even think that you can describe it verbally what makes her different from everyone else, right? It's just this something on this intuitive level. When you're looking at her works, you know, on this like just perceptional level, you can clearly see that, you know, something is different in these works. Yes, there's the same cubist works as every other artist that was, you know, experimenting back then, but still something in the colors, something how she was operating with these colors is it really makes her different. And again, as I said, I cannot describe verbally, which again, a very bad art historian, considering that this is like one of my works to describe verbally. And for you who are not into art history and not a specialist, well, I'm not also a specialist yet, but I mean, I'm sure you understand what I mean. But yeah, just, you know, her works well, personally me, that makes me so happy, just they make my little brain, those two last brain cells in my head, so happy. And and they're like jumping in fascination with all of that. However, again, you're looking at this work and this is like another someone who like pretend to be this experimentator and all this stuff, just a person who don't want to maybe work a lot, but still something is really really different. Even if we compare it again to Picasso, like I dislike Picasso with all my heart, apart of the fact that I dislike him as a human being, and I dislike his art also. And I mean, I like his early works, I like some of his periods, like I like his blue period works, but overall no, not a fan at all. And I think that Sonia, she is actually way more fascinating, she's way more complex, she's way more I don't know what words to use here. She know who she is, she know what she's doing, and she's in charge of that. I think this is, I mean, at least this is how I see her. This is the thing that I was talking about in a video about Wilhelm Hammershøi, that this modern art, this contemporary art, is such a hard topic to analyze and to discuss, because those are styles that are completely their main thing is to play with your own perception as as an individual. It is completely subjective art, and it is very hard to say what you need to, as an art historian, and as I said in Wilhelm Hammershøi's video, that I will not take this responsibility on myself and tell you what you need to see in this work, because I think this is like you need to feel it on your own. So thus, this is like my perception of Sonia. This is what I see in her works and how I see her works. She is also a very big figure in fashion. So, as you, I believe, understood already. So she was, as I said, everything started with this little patchwork quilt for her son Charles in 1911. And it is still actually preserved in the Paris Museum of Modern Art. And in 1913, so while she was painting all of the stuff, she was parallel to that still working on decorative art, still working with fabric, and she appeared at a bohemian party in this self-tailored dress, in this simultanism, well, from the word simultanism, and obviously she caused a sensation with that. So she introduced such a phenomenon also as a poem dress, which is well, basically a dress that contained an entire poem, and the words were also like correlating with this simultaneous forms and images. My god, I'm sorry, I'm getting lost a bit with this name in English. During so we're getting to the time of the First World War, and during this period of time they left, Delaunay family left Paris and they moved to Spain, then to Portugal, and overall they lived on this peninsula starting from 1914 till 1920. And it was here when in 1917 Sonia found out about October Revolution in back then, like back in Russian Empire, and thus the communists come into the became authorities, and thus it that meant that no financial aid from her uncle anymore, because her uncle he lost everything. Because of that, she needed to find herself more more and more work to pay their bills, and thus she completely what is this, how to conjugate that, into the decorative arts. She started to design more, these clothing models, fabric, like patterns for fabrics, different colors, also created layouts of playing cards. She even was doing some card designs, which is also interesting. obviously theater costumes, obviously decorations like book illustrations. At some point she even was weaving carpets and etc, etc. So basically everything that can bring her money very fast. So in Spain, Sonia met a lot of different artists, a lot of them from like Russian Empire, so Ukrainians, Russians who fled the country, who were able to do that. And one of them was Diaghilev, so that was a very important name. And she created for Diaghilev costumes for the ballet Cleopatra. And Robert, he worked on the decoration for this ballet. In 1919 also she worked on some decorations for casino in Madrid, so she was pretty busy as we can say. And in Madrid she also actually opened her own fashion house. Diaghilev, he helped her a lot with that, and so this fashion boutique, fashion house was called Casa Sonia. Very fastly it became a very popular place, obviously, and it was actually became so popular that she was able to open other filias in Bilbao, in Barcelona, in San Sebastian also, so there was another 3 cities. So as I said, they stayed there in they stayed there till 1920. 1920 they came back to Paris. 1921 she was able to open her own like fashion atelier, which was called Delaunay. It still exists. And then in 1925 she was able also to open Atelier Simultané, so that was this like boutique studio, as we can say. And she at this point she was very popular, and she dressed a lot of famous people, such, like for example, like a Hollywood actress Gloria Swanson, writer Nancy Cunard, architect Ernest Goldfinger, and etc, etc. So the demand for her products, for her clothes, fabrics, whatever, was huge. Thus it was it was huge not just in France or like nearby European countries. It was huge throughout Europe and in a lot of parts of USA also. She also developed drawings for fabrics for Lyon factories and textiles for the most famous high fashion houses such as Chanel, such as Mizoni, Yves Saint Laurent. Also, Yves Saint Laurent, he himself actually personally said that he was at some point very inspired by Sonia. And Sonia Delaunay fashion legacy remains relevant even now, thanks to one of her distant relatives, Alain Maloman, who is the artistic director of the Sonia Delaunay fashion house and popularizes the designs and patterns of the avant-garde artists in every possible way. So about also, we'll mention about car a bit. So in 1924, she designed a pattern with geometric shapes and bright colors that was meant to be the design for Citroën B12. Then another interesting piece was in 1967, she designed another pattern for a car, and this was for a Matra 530 sports car, which was a part of the exhibition 5 cars personalized by 5 contemporary artists. She experimented with optical effects that made the patterns on the car move when in motion. So the blocks of color were designed to morph into a single blue pale shade when the car was being driven, to avoid distracting other drivers and causing an accident, basically. And very important period in Sonia's art was in 1925. So it was the Paris exhibition of decorative arts. So she presented a very wide range of different products, starting from, like, again, some clothes, some scarf with this simultaneous, my god, patterns and all of this stuff, which were enormously popular. She presented some carpets, clothes as well, again, etc, etc, and even cars, as I said already. Overall, it was like the whole pavilion was built for her. You can already imagine, the attitude toward the artist and how, well, we can say well known and respected she was, because other artists had just, like some little corner, you know, somewhere, but she had like almost the whole pavilion built for herself. She was declared a leading representative of Art Deco, which combined modern and avant-garde, a balance of volume and color, and a wonderful sense of rhythm. This is how the Parisian fashion magazine L'Art Vivant characterized Madame Delaunay work after the exhibition. After that, Vogue, they put her this optical dress on the cover of the magazine, with the car also that Sonia designed. And overall, with her also there were presented other Ukrainian artists such as Alexandra Ekster, Nathan Altman, David Sternberg, and etc. etc. They were friends with, especially with Ekster. Yeah, it's correct to call her Alexandra Ekster, not Ekster. Ekster. She's Ekster. I will make video about her because she's a very like she's a very big name. Also, she's a very important figure in Ukrainian art and Ukrainian avant-garde. So I will make a video, and they were very close friends with Sonia. So as I said, Delaunay, she always at this point she occupied an important place in art world. However, after this exhibition, after 1925, she became even more popular than she was, and thus with this popularity came fortune. So they moved. Till this point of time they were living in a small apartment somewhere in Paris, but they moved to a bigger one, a bigger place, and theaters and film studios, they were eager, you know, to get her to design some of the decorations for their plays, their movies, and etc. She was at some point, Sorbonne even invited her to give lectures on art history. They proposed to her actually to conduct a special course which was called How Painting Affects Fashion Design. But unfortunately, nothing lasts forever, and in 1921, so America had this crisis, and it affected it had an impact on Europe. It had obviously an impact on Sonia herself, Sonia's all of the businesses, and it led to the point that in 1935 she was obligated actually to close her fashion houses, and she continued to work on this, but just for the most wealthiest, and maybe, as I understood, some of the constant clients, maybe with those with whom she was close friends. But overall, she finished with all of this designer stuff. And don't get me wrong, you know, she was painting, she was creating paintings all of this period of time still, but you know, her main priority all this time was decorative arts. But because of this crisis, and because she like now needed to again gain money somehow, she got back to painting like full-time. In 1931, she was one of the organizers of the Salon Abstraction Creation. In 1931, Avant-Garde Salon New Reality. And overall, the works, her works of this 1930s, they are very similar. You know, this they're close to the artistic searches of Kandinsky, of Mondrian, of Hepworth, and well, artists like them. In the aesthetics of industrial arts, she, as I said, she was still like doing some kind of sketches for fabrics, for ceramics also, and stuff like that. She was very similar to constructivism icons, as we can say, as Tatlin, as Vesnin, as L. Lisitsky. Those are very also popular and big names of constructivism. Then we are moving to the Second World War period, so it's like 1939, and they, again, moving from Paris, they moved to the province of Auvergne. However, they moved, and in this period of time, Robert was already very ill. Well, he was like, not just very, he was terminally ill. And in 1941, Robert died because he had a cancer. So despite her grief, Sonia, she still continued to work very She still continued to put, all of the force into her works. She was gathering all of her husband's works, these theoretical works, and she was, well, showing their paintings, their experiments that we're doing together. She was publishing his theoretical works and all of this. She started to write also memoirs about Robert, about her like very close friends, so such as like Apollinaire, Picasso, Jacob, Léger, Braque, Exter, that I said, her very close friends, Kandinsky, Altmann, and etc., etc. And after the war ended, so the abstract art blew up, and she was presenting her works and works of her husband on each and every exhibitions throughout the Europe, so it was very popular also, and she still, supported this legacy of her husband's work, and well, her own also, but yeah, in memory of him, she created a lot. In 1930, oh, 30, I'm sorry, 63, so we are skipping a chunk of time, because I to be honest, I haven't found a lot of information what was going on. So I mean, I suppose she was just continuing working all of these years, and was still experimenting. Yeah, in 1963, she then presented 117 her works, and well, in different sources it was written that also some of works of Robert was in this list, to Louvre. And the next year, Louvre made a big exhibition of Sonia Delaunay. So it was the first time in the history of Louvre that a female artist had her personal exhibition, and also a lifetime, as you can imagine. So in 1966, she created a large cycle of abstract paintings, rhythms and colors, in which this sharp contrasts were replaced by smooth color transitions and balanced brightness. Her works, well, after her death, it was very popular, very expensive. So, and it was like this all the time. So, for example, like, in 2002, one of her works, market in Mignot. I really like this work. I mean, I don't know why, but this work makes me so happy. like I had such a high serotonin boost when I'm looking at this work. So this work was sold for 4.5 million euros. And it was said that it was more than 5 times higher than the estimate in catalog. And overall, the merits of the artist, gained recognition because she was a Chevalier of Arts and Letters, and in 1975 she was a winner of France's highest award, the Legion of Honor. Although you see, as I said, her active creative life, Delaunay had like no direct ties with her motherland, with Ukraine, and since she lived starting from like 1904 in Germany, then in France, she still constantly contacted with a lot of Ukrainian artists, and she helped a lot of Ukrainian artists, because in this period of time, as I mentioned already, we had a lot of different colonies of Ukrainian artists in Munich, in Paris, just overall throughout the especially German cities, like Düsseldorf also, and etc. So she was helping, and it was such as artists as already mentioned one, Altmann, Burluk. Burluk also, it's like such a big name in Ukrainian art. It's like, like Malevich also is like, they are on the same level completely. We'll be talking about him. We'll be talking about him definitely. So she's like, technically she had some kind of, because those are like Burluk especially, he was a like Burluk, like Malevich also. He was very into Ukrainian folk culture, and he got inspired a lot by that, and he was showing this Ukrainian culture in his works, again, same as Malevich. He was my teacher, very fascinated about Ukrainian villages and the Ukrainian peasants' lives. So I think this is also how Delaunay got some information and inspiration from Ukraine, from Ukrainian folk art. As already mentioned, she was already friends with a lot of Ukrainian artists, and a part of. So a part of like those that I meant, like Altman, Burlu, she was also friends with Mikhailo Boychuk. Boychuk also, it's like we have like the whole style which is called Boychukism in Ukraine, and it is like very huge stuff. So and he was, the main idea was this combination of this modern with this ancient art, ancient Ukrainian like Kievan Rus art and everything. So she had a lot of people around her who were inspired and who adored Ukrainian culture and who were propagating Ukrainian culture and showing that we have our own. And well, this is what Russians dislike with all their heart, and this is what they started to destroy already back then in that period of times. Having lived for more than half a century outside of Ukraine, Delaunay however never forgot Ukraine. I will quote you right now her memoirs where she wrote about Ukraine. So she wrote that I love the clean, bright colors of my childhood, Ukraine. I remember the peasants' weddings of my country where red and green dresses, decorated with numerous bows, flew in the dance. I remember how watermelons and melons grow, tomatoes gird the houses with red, and large sunflowers, yellow with the black cores, shine in the light, very high blue sky. So this is like, I think, a very vivid memory, right, for a 7-year-old child. But well, I mean, who knows? Maybe she had an extraordinary memory or something. I don't know. But that was her remembrance. She was very grateful for these old times and for the country where she comes from. And thus, I think it is appropriate to call her, like Ukrainian artist, also a part of the fact that she's considered to be a French artist with Ukrainian roots. And so Sonia Delaunay, she died on December 5th of 1979. So she lived very, I think, extraordinary, active, happy 94 years, and which is already like, it's like enormous numbers, I think. And yeah, so she's buried in France, obviously, and unfortunately in Ukraine here we don't have her works at all. Yeah, so this is everything that I have for today about this amazing, colorful woman. Plus, it's some gray days right now. Well, which, I mean, I personally don't mind, but considering the situation that we are in, and this war and stuff, and in what conditions our soldiers are living there on the front line, obviously I would like to be well, at least for the rain to stop, and the rain, the snow, and finally to be this warm weather, so they could at least move normally and not in all of this, just basically this wet dirt and stuff. So yeah. So this is everything that I have for today. We will end up here, and as usual, hope that you found something interesting for yourself today and something new for yourself today. And wish you good day, good evening, good morning, whatever you are, and hope to see you in the next videos. Bye bye.